I have a dream today. I dream that all Jira users can easily know where their tickets has been released and deployed. I dream that testers can start testing without bothering others to know which ticket they can test on which environments. I dream that developers can really focus on development, pushing commits and merging things into Git repositories without having to manually update Jira tickets. I dream that Release Manager can rely on always up-to-date dashboard without having to hassle people with never-ending meeting to just know status of current deployments. I dream that every team will get recognition they deserve for the hard work they provide to deliver value to end customer. And most importantly, I dream that you, after this video, will realize that all these dreams can become reality. I show you how we made it happen into our own organization at Upwide. We'll explore together some techniques, some tips, some ideas you can really put into practice to bring this new modern way of release management into your own teams. We'll connect the dots between Jira, X-Ray, the Go Live apps, and any other tools you may already be using in your current processes. Join me on this journey and let's turn this into reality. So before digging into the details to see how this dream may become reality, let's take a step back. So what is release management? So first, it's a term that is used many times, that can have many different senses depending on the organization. But let's start with a simple definition that will be our common definition during this presentation. So release management refers to the process. So it's really a process of planning, designing, testing, deploying, and controlling software releases. So now we know more about what release management is. Let's see why release management is so important and why it is really challenging. In fact, it is challenging because it makes two different things. The first thing is really the idea to bring new feature, to bring new value to your customers. So meaning to bring something new to your customers. But at the same time, it should not break anything regarding what is existing and what your current customers are already relying on. So now let's define some key concepts we will use during this presentation. The first concept to really define is the first word of release management, that is release. So what is a release? What is a version? So in our presentation, a release, a version will be complete synonym. It's exactly the same concept. And what are they at the end? So we may say that a release, a version is a set of modifications you bring together to an application. Okay, now you know what releases and versions are. So how are these releases and version produced? These are the result of a build process, a build job that is executed by a machine where we execute the compilation and build the artifacts that will be deployed. And this brings to the next key concept, is the concept of deployment. Deployment is the job that will put an existing release that is built onto a specific target that is called an environment. Naturally, if you ship your application, your new version to production, it's quite clear that you take the new version, and you put this to the production environment. But you know all that before bringing something new to the production environment, you have to test your feature, to test your release, and to bring this before onto testing environments. So the concept of environments and to know what is deployed to your different environments is a central also concept in your release management process. And naturally, if you are talking about a version release, it's completely linked to the mother concept of application. Because if you are dealing with different applications, each of your application will have its own release and versioning and deployment process. So now, what is release management in Jira? So the good news is that release management in Jira is as old as Jira itself. So far, I remember the first time I've been working with Jira, it was Jira 5 something, it was many years ago. And still already in this version, there were some version concept. So everybody that has been working in Jira knows the affects version field, the fix versions field, knows the release hub, knows the release notes. So these are really old concepts that are really part of Jira itself. A version in Jira is quite limited concept, meaning that you have some fields that are here, typically a start date, end date, the release status, a release note. But that's it. You must do. There's no way to define custom field or other specific things in your Jira version. Another concept that is here since the beginning in Jira is the field environment. So the concept of environment is also very old in Jira. What is an environment in Jira world? A free text field? Yes, it is. So how do you build any statistics or gadget or widget just to know, for example, the number of tickets that has been detected in different environments? So it's really not the best solution. So in many organizations, what I've seen is that they have replaced this standard field by a select list or something like that, just to have a better way to manage this information. So again, the concept is here still since the beginning, but it's quite limited from a practical point of view. On top of it, an environment is not just a free text field, it's really an entity that has a configuration, that has a life cycle. An environment can be up, can be down, it has a currently deployed version on it, it has a lot of characteristics, a lot of things that define what an environment is at the end. So it's much more than just a free text field. More recently, in Jira, you can now have all the development information available right in your tickets, giving you the status of the commit, the pull request, or all the job or the build status that are linked to the current ticket. So it's very powerful integration with major tools like Jenkins, Bitbucket, GitLab, and all the tools that you may use in your own company. So these are really powerful information really to link your Jira tickets with the development status, the real status in your development tools. The latest innovation of Atlassian, innovation that now is perhaps 3 years, is 3 years old, that was just brought to Jira Cloud, Software Cloud, is called the deployment panel, the deployment API. So it's a new way to bring information about the deployment and the environment a ticket has been deployed to. So this new deployment API is really great and was really a missing piece. Typically, for testers who are interested to know where a ticket has been deployed in order to execute tests, this information is really useful. The problem of that, we were just talking before that it was really important to have a very clear terminology. And do you know how Atlassian has called this new section in the deployment information tab? Releases, just to display deployment information. So regarding what is available currently in Jira ecosystem, there are many different things that are available, but these things are somehow disconnected from each other. So now we will see together how it's possible to link all these things together to really put in place a strong and integrated way to manage releases and deployments into Jira. So now it's time to stop a bit regarding the theory, regarding what you know already, and to really dig into the way we are managing releases at Appwide. So now I will switch to my computer to see all these things in action. So now I will start by creating a ticket in Jira that is perhaps the most frequent use case for Jira users. So in this case, I'm creating a bug. This is quite an embarrassing bug because I have an error message when I try to rename a token in the application I'm testing currently. And traditionally, with default Jira setup, you have usually, when you create a new bug, to set the affects version, the version in which you have detected your bug, and also the famous environment free text field here to describe the environment in which you have detected your bug, for example, here. In our case, at AppWide, we don't use at all these two fields when we create bugs. We are just setting another information. We use a custom field that comes with Go Live app here that is called detected in, that is used to really specify the environments in which we have detected the bug. So in my case, I've just detected this in Go Live Cloud production environment, and that's it. So I don't set any affects version, any environment information here, and let's say it's a minor bug, and let's create it. So now I've created my ticket. You can see affects version is not set at all. So you may think, oh, it's a bit, what have I said? Have you seen this? Now affects version was automatically set behind the scene. So what happened? The idea again is to try to avoid asking things to users that the system can know better than the users. And in this case, typically, by setting the environment here, I've just associated this ticket, this new bug I've just created, to a Go Live environment. So here, when you click on the environment section, you will have just a list, contextual list, with all applications that are linked to your current Jira project. You will have all your environments here. So you can see here that it's much more than just free text fields. Environment are really, they have a status that is very visible with the color. And here, if I just put my mouse over the production environment, I can see that I've just detected my bug on this Go Live Cloud environment, and that the version that is currently deployed to this environment is this one. And do you know what? It's exactly the affects version that was set automatically. So the fact just to associate my bug when I created my bug to the right environment in Go Live is enough to deduce the affects version automatically. So now I've created my bug. I've assigned this bug to a developer because it's important to be fixed. And now let's have a closer look together about the next step in the life cycle. So it's just the bug fixing. So we will enter now the developer world. The first thing you may hear quite often, at least in my case, is that developers are often reluctant to spend time in Jira to update Jira tickets that they've been working on. To understand better why it's so complicated sometimes to ask this to developer, we should have a closer look to the typical timeline. Let's say at 8:30, I've just assigned the bug to a developer in my team. So the developer is notified of the bug. Let's say the hour after, between 8:30 and 9:30, the developer is able to reproduce the bug, to understand what is wrong, to fix the code, and to push his fix to Git repository. Next step, okay, let's say automated tests are okay, everything is okay, there's no regression on this modification, and the request is open for the rest of the development team for a code review. So 1 hour later, let's say the code review is performed, the code was perfect. Again, it's quite optimistic scenario. Everything is fine, the fix is merged to the develop branch, that is the current release that is currently under development. And so everything looks fine. And once the fix is merged to the develop branch, the CI/CD pipeline is automatically triggered to execute again the non-regression testing and to include and to deploy automatically the bug fix to the development environment. That is the first stage of our testing environment. Concretely, it means that at 12 o'clock the bug is ready to be verified by QA teams on development environment. And QA teams need a way to be notified that they can now test this bug on the development environment. The naive approach that I've seen in many companies is to ask the developers to update the Jira ticket and to change its status and to update manually the fixed version to say now, okay, at 12 o'clock you should communicate to the QA team that everything is finished. So okay, you can just change the status of the bug and set the fixed version, so every Jira users are aware that the bug fix is ready to be tested. I say this naive approach because behind the scene, the developers finished perhaps 2 hours ago the work on the ticket. So now he has started to work on the next tickets, on next topics. And this is really an optimistic timeline, because in many cases, in many companies, it's not just 2 hours, it may be days. So what you ask to the developer in this, with this way of working, you ask the developer just to switch, to stop his work on the topic what he's currently working on, just to go back 2 hours or 2 days in the past, to just put an information to say, okay, now you can test my bug, you can test my feature on the testing environments. The root cause of why developers are not really fond of Jira, most of them, is that developers are not developing in Jira. Their core business is not in Jira. It is the case for QA teams, it is the case for project managers, for product manager, for many different roles in the company, but not for developers. The working environment of developers is more something like that. It's a commit that is pushed to a repository. And if there's one thing you should ask to your developer, this is this thing. The only thing, if you should ask just one thing to your developer, is to ask them, once they have finished their work, it means once, just before pushing a commit to the common Git repository, it's the right time to ask them, okay, so you have done an important piece of work. So just tell me now it's time to, everything is reviewed, everything is fine, and just to, okay, so just sum it up. What have you been working on, and just put the list of Jira tickets that have been fixed or are linked to the commit that you are pushing to the Git repository. And afterwards, to notify all the other teams when the ticket is deployed on one environment or another environment, or when the ticket is released into a version. So let's automate that. It's not the developer role to do that. Machines are much better to do that. And developers are much better to just keep focus on what they are doing. So now the bug is fixed, it's time to check if the bug is fixed correctly. And it's traditionally the role of QA teams. The first thing that is really important for QA teams is to be informed of what is happening. And a kind of event that is very important for them is to be informed as soon as the deployment is performed, because it will be the starting point when the QA team knows that a new defect, a new feature is available and is deployed to an environment. It means that they can start working, checking the quality of these deliverables. In our case, in AppWide, we are relying on Slack for internal communication. And what we want is to automate a lot of things, and we want to automatically receive a Slack notification each time a deployment is performed. And remember, we've just asked to the developer not to update manually Jira tickets, but just to link their commits with Jira tickets, meaning that if Jenkins is performing the job to deploy things, Jenkins has access to the history of the commits and is able to rebuild. Each time Jenkins is deploying a new version on a specific environment, is able to rebuild the full list of issues that are deployed in the release that is currently deployed to this environment. So now let's have a look. So I'm a QA person and I want to test this. I was really waiting for this bug fix here. So I click on it to access it into Jira. So in Jira here, the idea is that the QA person has all information he needs to do his job. And the first information he needs is just to know where the ticket is currently deployed, to find the right environment to test the bug. If it's just testing the bug in an environment where the new version that includes the bug fix is not deployed yet, he will just lose time, precious time. So here with this view, again, you have another view of all environments that are linked for each of your application. Here you have your different environment. You know instantly which environment is up, which environment is down. And now you have a new visual marker that are clouds here, clouds icons. That means it's just marking the fact that it's all environments where the current ticket has been deployed to. So it means here you can test this ticket in demo. You have directly the shortcut with the URL of your environment. Just click on it and you can start testing your bug on the right environment. And if you want to reproduce the bug, you can choose an environment where the ticket is not deployed to and try to reproduce this environment, this bug, sorry. So as easy as that. And if you have, perhaps you have also seen that, so the detected in environment was done by the QA person when he created the bug. Affix version was set automatically, and also all the fixed version here was set completely automatically by Jenkins. Because if you have a closer look at the history of the ticket, just to check I'm not lying, you can just ensure yourself. Julian is one of our main developer here. Just change the status of the ticket just to know, okay, I'm working, I'm taking this ticket, and the development is in progress. So it just transitions the ticket from to do to in progress. And then App.ci is our technical users. It's just Jenkins that is doing his job. And Jenkins, as again, each commit is linked to Jira ticket, so he's able to automatically add the right Jira ticket to the right release and automatically inform Go Live, inform Jira that the release has been deployed finally to the various environments. So all these kind of things can be automated. And Go Live also can send a Slack notification when the job is done. So all can be fully automated. And the next, here it's another technical user automation for Jira that do part of the job also. So it's quite easy, as we are integrated with the Jira Software Deployment API. We can also trigger automatically a status change when the status the deployment is performed regarding current tickets. So here it just say, okay, now the development is finished. Now it's time to validate the ticket, and all this is automatically performed by Jira, by Jenkins, by different tools, and surely not by the developer, because the developer is already working, has already fixed many other bugs. In addition to these views here, you have also a full integration with a very nice Jira Software Cloud Deployment API here. So you can just have a look here about what it is. You have a history of the deployment of the ticket. Again, all this is enabled by one thing, just linking your commits with your Jira tickets. And once you have that, you can have this view. So you can have also the timeline view here, just to see the history of the deployment of the ticket on the time axis. And even if you are removing the filter of one issue, you can have for all issues of your project, you can see the deployment history and follow, and to know for each of your tickets where and when it has been deployed to. Positive consequence of all these things is that Jira users have no excuse anymore to bother teams just to know the status of a deployment or status of a ticket. If they know that all this information is fully automatically updated, they will trust the system more than people, and they will just keep human interaction just for important things. We have talked about QA teams creating bugs, development teams fixing bugs, QA team verifying, testing bugs. At one point of time, it's time to ship a release with a number of bug fixes, with a number of new features, and to ship this release to production. So now we will focus a bit more about the next, latest stage of the releases, that is really the packaging and the release of the release. So let's start from a page that every Jira users know. It's a release hub, so it's a new name of the release page or the versions page. I don't remember in old version of Jira how it was called, but in Jira, releases are complete synonym of versions. And typically in our case, you can have a look on the releases on our main project for our main application, and we just have 2 releases that are currently unreleased. And I can assure you that it was not always the case. And I can assure you that almost at any customers currently have the opportunity to have a look into the releases of the Jira project. Most of them are completely messy, because you have plenty of releases that are in fact released but never set as released, and the start date are not set, and the release date not anymore. Not to, and it's really messy. So again, think about always the same starting point. If the piece of code you are shipping to any kind of environment, including the production, are advn commits, and if each of your commits are linked to Jira tickets, so versions are useful to group Jira tickets together and to communicate about a group of Jira tickets that have been deployed somewhere. So it's really the core of release management in Jira. And again, if you think about who is doing the release, it's not the release manager who is really building a release. It's Jenkins, or it's automated. So why not automate the full life cycle of your Jira releases? So it's what we have put in place at Hapwide, meaning that here, so you have the unreleased version. We have just two unreleased versions, one for the cloud version and one for the on-premise version. And if you look at the release, here you have much more releases. But these are released at the end. When the scope of the release is fixed, we know exactly the tickets that are part of the releases, and then we are automatically, when the build is finished of the release, we automatically set the release date, and we change the status to release. It means that automatically this release, I would say our release repository is kept up to date without having to do anything. So as a release manager, we've seen just before, for the QA team, it's very important to know for each issue where it is deployed to, when it was deployed, when we can reproduce bug. And from a more, would say, release manager point of view, it's more important to have an overview of all the releases that are ongoing. So typically you can, thanks to Go Live, you can really have also on the timeline, instead of focusing on issues that were deployed, you can focus on releases. So here you can quickly navigate, have an overview and the timeline of the different releases, Jira releases here, and also the history of your deployments in the CI environment or staging environment with the list of tickets that have been deployed, all these kind of things. So you can really build very powerful roadmap, and this roadmap are not just roadmap. Static roadmap is just not an Excel file somewhere. It's really in real time updated, because it's connected to real data that are automatically updated by our Jenkins jobs who are performing deployments and releasing a version and all this kind of stuff. So it's really a live release dashboard. So it's also typically from this kind of view that as release manager, you want perhaps to manually adjust things regarding what really happens. In our case, for example, we have still a way to improve our deployment process because in Go Live, when we are deploying version to Go Live staging environment and Go Live production, there are still a few manual operations to be performed. Meaning that we have to manually update and to say, for example, okay, now in production, so we have pushed to marketplace a new version, so I just have to mark here to tell which version we have deployed. So we have deployed now this version, and here directly you have all the tickets that are part of the version that is deployed, that are automatically added to my deployment. And okay, let's say it was today, but it was this morning. So it was at 8 o'clock here. So, okay, and I create my deployment. In many companies, including our company, so we are working on that, there are still some manual tasks and things we have to manually update. And this is a good way to keep our deployment history manually here, using just Go Live as a, would say, a better place than Excel file to just keep track and to share information about our deployment that are not automatically performed. You've been very brave to be still here. So we are slowly coming to the end of the presentation. So I hope you enjoyed it. And before letting you implement this brand new way to manage a release in your company, I want just to give you a few takeaways. First takeaway is that Jira Cloud especially is really going better and bring a lot of new things, interesting things for better release management in Jira. Second things, if you have just one thing to ask to your developer, just ask to your developers just to include the Jira ticket key in each of their commits. And it's the only thing you need to know. Afterwards, you don't have any more to ask them to go into Jira, to update tickets, to update a fixed version, or to update manually, to add manually tickets to Jira version. You have a way to automate all this stuff. It's not the developer job to do that. It should be automation job. Third takeaway is regarding the management of your releases. So very often Jira releases is a mess. You have plenty of releases that are never closed, start, end date are never set. So again, the solution for all of that is to automate your release processes and to automate the full release lifecycle. So you have tools like Jenkins, GitLab, all these kind of tools you can use really to automate the management of your releases. Fourth takeaway, Go Live will really help you to connect the dots together between the releases, between the deployment of your issues, between status of your environment, deployment to your different environments, and giving you the ability to really build different views that are useful for different teams and your different Jira project. So Go Live is really a communication tool that will connect a lot of concepts that are not natively connected in Jira, and Go Live will be a glue to really connect all these existing concepts together. And the last point, don't forget the power of Jira automation. So Jira automation is really evolving very quickly and enables you to automate a lot of things. Typically to automatically set affected version once you have just set the environment you have detected a bug in. All these kind of things you can really gain a lot of time and energy in your different processes using automation in Jira. So thank you very much for your attention. I hope that you enjoyed this webinar, and let's now answer to your question. And I would be really pleased to talk to you about this topic. It's one of my favorite topics, so don't hesitate to ping me to take contact with us, and we will be happy to talk about release management with you.